Book Snapshot, Chapter 4, Albert Einstein at School. Written by Patrick Pringle. The biographer of the great physicist Albert Einstein. Albert Einstein was born in 1879, died in 1955, and he is regarded as the greatest physicist since Newton. In the following extract, which is taken from the young Einstein, the well-known biographer Patrick Pringle describes the circumstances which led to Albert Einstein's expulsion from a German school. He was expelled from the school. Expelled means he was turned out from the school. Now, Albert Einstein had the seeds of genius in him. From the primary school stage in Munich, which we will see in this chapter. He was very honest and plain speaking. But he had his own theory of education. He hated to learn the facts and figures of history by heart. And he argued with his teachers because he valued ideas more than the dates of battles, which are taught in history. He was greatly misunderstood by his history teacher, who called him a disgrace. Not only that, he also felt very miserable at his lodging where he was living even in Munich. He found his landlady beating her children while her drunken husband thrashed her on weekends. And so we see that with the help of his friend Yuri, he had a great friend in Yuri and Dr. Ernest Well, he managed to leave Munich to study in Milan. Milan was in Italy. But Albert had, not only this, Albert had two great hobbies. His first of all hobby was to study science subject, and secondly to play upon the violin. Now we see Einstein, he was studying in a German school in Munich. Munich is in Germany. His history teacher is there, Mr. Brown, who asked him in which year Napoleon was defeated at Waterloo by the Prussians. Now the boy confessed. He confessed very bluntly that he didn't know the year and that he must have forgotten. But he argued with his teacher that there was no sense in learning facts, which was not the aim of education. And the teacher asked the boy to tell the class his theory of education. And then he says that his theory of education is to learn ideas more than to learn the dates which are taught in history. And Albert Einstein very bluntly told the class that it was, in his opinion, it was more important to learn the ideas, not the dates, I told you. And he did not feel like going to school every day. Now, secondly, he was poor. And he was having his lodging in a room in the poorest part of Munich. But he hated that place because of slum atmosphere. And as I told you earlier, his landlady, she used to beat her children regularly. Not only this, on her weekends, she herself used to get beaten by her drunken husband. This also had a great effect on Albert Einstein. He did not want to stay there in that school in Munich. But his father was not likely to take him away until Einstein had taken his diploma. Now, Albert Einstein was very lucky to have a very sincere friend, that was Yuri. And he always discussed his problem of schooling as well as of lodging with him. And then his friend told him, he helped him to get a medical certificate from a doctor. He manipulated his friend Yuri along with his another friend, Dr. Ernest Well. He got a medical certificate that he has some nervous breakdown. And then Albert, he planned to take that medical certificate to his head teacher. But before that, his head teacher had sent for Albert and told him that he wanted the boy to leave the school at once. It was a sort of expulsion for him, that he was turned out from the school. According to the head teacher, Albert refused to learn and he was in constant rebellion with the teachers. And then Albert declared that he was going to leave the school otherwise also. and very defiantly he walked out of the office and the school where he had spent 5 miserable years. And this way he left Munich and he went to Milan, where he was very happy to be there. So we see that Albert Einstein, he did not find the learning in the schools very pleasing. He was always in constant rebellion with his teachers. He argued why to learn the facts, why to cram. He was against rote memorizing. He was against the cramming which was there in the schools. And see this way we will see the chapter Albert Einstein. In what year, Einstein asked the history teacher, did the Prussians defeat the French at Waterloo? So his history teacher, Mr. Brown, he asked Einstein that in which year these Prussians, the Germans, they defeated the Napoleon, that is the French. I don't know, sir. Why don't you know? You have been told it often enough. I must have forgotten. Did you ever try to learn? Asked Mr. Brown. No, sir. Albert replied with his usual unthinking honesty. Natural honesty means unthinking means always he was so honest, plain speaking. But why not? I can't see any point in learning dates. One can always look them up in a book. So he said, why to learn the dates? You can always look in the book. Mr. Brown was speechless for a few moments because he was argued by a student. You amaze me, Einstein. He said that you always surprise me. He said at last, don't you realize that one can always look most things up in the books? That applies to all the facts you learn at school. So his teacher said that you can always look for all the things in the book. Why to learn? Yes, sir. Then I suppose you don't see any point in learning facts. Frankly, sir, I don't, said Albert. So Albert, very candidly, very frankly, very bluntly, he said, yes, sir, I don't find. Then you don't believe in education at all. Oh, yes, sir, I do. I don't think learning facts is education. And then he says, learning facts, learning of the things, dates and all is not the education. In that case, said the history teacher with heavy sarcasm. So the history teacher said with heavy teasing, perhaps you will be so kind as to tell the class the Einstein theory of education. Then the teacher in very teasing tone, he said that you explain what is your theory of education.